Honored to be sitting with the head coach at Florida Atlantic University, John McCormack. Mac, thanks for sipping on with us, man.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for all that you guys do. It's amazing convention, and certainly appreciate it.
It's awesome. Our team couldn't be more excited about what's happening here. Again, crossing over well past Indy numbers of 6,100. We're well past 6,500. Hopefully I'll get a numbers update. We can keep reporting that, but we're just heading in a great direction. But honestly, it's because of men like you and your passion for this association. And I'm going to go right into this, man. Talk about the ABCA. What's it meant to you over the course of your coaching career?
It's really been a godsend, so to speak, because of the fact that my coaching background is so different than the traditional
That's
guy.
right. That's right.
I worked for one guy. I've worked at one school. Yep. Was GA, this, that, the other thing to head coach. And coming to the first convention, Ron Polk was unbelievable.
Right.
You know, he inspired me to come more, not by anything that like he said or anything, just the way he welcomed me.
Right.
And, you know, he knew about Florida Atlantic and knew some of the things we were doing down there. And he was so gracious. And then Dusty Rhodes, another,
Sure. Yep.
I think he's an ABC Hall of Famer.
Yep.
Was gracious as well. You know, I knew him a little bit from where I grew up, and he grew up a little bit not too far away. And he was gracious. And the convention of those older guys that, you know, were on TV very little, but when you opened up, you know, collegiate baseball and Baseball America, they were at the forefront.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
they were the guys that you wanted to emulate.
Yep.
And those two guys specifically were really gracious, and everybody's gracious. You know, it's you walk through here for 3 or 4 days, and there's no arguments, there's no nothing. Everybody's polite, everybody's nice. You know, it's really it's nice to hear some of the conversations of the younger coaches that, oh, I can't wait to go see this guy speak.
Right.
I can't wait to, and to me is really neat because a lot of the younger people, they're, you know, I don't want to sound like an old fuddy-duddy, but they spend a lot of time on their phones.
Sure.
But to be able to go do it in person,
Right.
I think is amazing. And the numbers bear it out, you know.
Go into this then, because that's a great segue when you think about how much the ABCA has grown over the last 5 years. And we can go through numbers, but I think for you, your perspective being one of 20 plus, 30 plus, how many conventions?
28.
20, closing in on 30. That is a ton of experience and perspective. Just bring it back to the last 5 years and how things have really amped up, the momentum that we have. How have you seen that transition?
I was just explaining, someone asked me out there, what's the difference?
Yeah.
In my first convention, 91-ish, okay. It was mainly Division I coaches.
Right.
Mainly
right.
Division I. And that's a function of budgets. And
sure.
And then it's slowly grown to, I think we're somewhat the minority now, you know, the youth baseball, the travel baseball, the
high school baseball
yeah. has exploded,
yeah.
you know, in a good way.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to know that the guys we're entrusting in our next recruits are here
That's right.
learning and trying to understand.
That's a great
and
point.
That's a really good thing to have for the game.
Oh, I love that. I want to go into this because I know, and we'll talk about this briefly, is that there was a point, I told the story actually last night to a couple coaches. They're asking about the podcast, and they said, man, it's just awesome. Every week I look forward to it every week. And I said, do you remember a time when it wasn't every week? It was every other week. And we were trying to manage that process of, you know, I'm a one-man show, so it's the editing, it's the producing, it's
sure.
the recording. And I'll never forget it. The convention, you grabbed me and you said, geez, I love the podcast, but if I could get more of them, it'd be even better.
Yes.
And I can't thank you enough, and I'll do it in front of these coaches. That was one of the most significant shifts we made, and I think it took our place as a content delivery system, as a resource center for coaches. That took it to a place where, again, the language around our loyal listeners, the tens of thousands of guys that listen, is every Tuesday. Every Tuesday, I'm ready for that next episode to drop, and you are to thank for that, and I appreciate that.
Well, my pleasure. I'll give you my bank account for the royalties.
Well, it won't be much, but man, I'll send whatever I've got.
Maybe a pocket square.
I can easily do
okay.
that. I've got a few extras laying around.
No, people, again, someone asked me, do you look forward to this? Do you still? I'm like, heck yeah.
Absolutely.
This is fantastic too. You know, we spend so much time each year trying to beat somebody.
Sure.
That at least for these 4 or 5 days that we're coming together for a common goal. You know, and people might think it sounds corny, but you know me, so it's really truly how I believe. But I enjoy it. The podcast. I'm on the ABCA editorial committee too.
Right.
I get those emails about the things. I call those coaches and say, "Hey, that was a really nice job. Tell me about it." And a lot of guys that are on these podcasts, I email them and say, "Great job. Could you go into this?" You know, Brian Green called him. I said, "Hey, I listened to your podcast. I got a problem. You seem to be able to help me with it." You know, so it's a fantastic resource. And the people that are on them. If you email them and say, "Hey, I need some help," they're right there, man.
There. Oh.
You know,
well, that accentuates the true brotherhood of this community. How we all steal from each other.
Sure.
We all share everything, and that's a huge exclamation point to how special this group is. I do want to go into this. I know you well enough to know how you're engineered in the spirit of our listeners and a lot of our members. You're constantly trying to find a new way to get better. You're constantly not being just settled in where you're at and what you're coaching. You're always tweaking, reading, listening, and trying to find new ways. Can you point to maybe something specific, maybe recently, that challenged you a little bit, that maybe you went, "You know what, I could do better at that. I could coach that better. I could maybe tweak the way that." Do you have anything you would really point to and say, "This is something that challenged me that I'm willing to change"?
Well, everything really.
Love it.
2 years ago, a couple years ago, we had a really good run. We were in a super regional years ago, haven't been back, and that kind of fueled me to, we got to change things.
Sure.
You know, you just can't, it would be perfectly acceptable for us to keep doing what we'd be doing.
Right.
So, we did practice different. I dealt with the players differently. We changed some recruiting things. And I think it's really good as coaches that you do that you continue to evolve and change. And my old boss used to kind of make fun of me a little bit in a tongue-in-cheek when I come back from the convention. I would want to change practice.
Yeah, no doubt.
But it's true. You don't think of everything, and you can't go upstairs and say, "I'm going to do exactly what this guy does."
Sure.
You can't do that. You go, "Hey, this is the two things I always come away with is, one, I'm on the right path." Like
confirm where you're at.
Confirm. And then the second one is like, "Hey, that was a really good 45-minute talk. These 3 points I think I can use." I'll tell everybody, we were listening to Pat Casey. I took 3 notes. We have our first practice on Sunday. There's 2 things that I'm going to use. Thank you, Pat.
Shout out, Pat Casey.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That I'm going to use,
Wow.
And it's the delivery system, and I think you got to continually change the way you deliver and your message, because you can get stale, you can get old, and that's why I'm interested in. I'm really anxious to listen to Tim, because I listened to his podcast. I emailed him, and Tim and I are friends, and I said, "Hey, I have a few questions. Do you really meet every day in that classroom?" And he's like, "Yes." I'm like, "Every single day?"
It's special, man.
And I go, what are the topics? And he goes, "I'll see you in Dallas. Watch the presentation, and then we can talk after." And I'm like, I don't know if my players would say, "Come on, coach, that's enough." Like every single day, or I'm really anxious to hear what he has to say in terms of the way he presents it. And, I know a little bit just by talking to him about it, but I don't know it all. But I just, those are the things that, because of the delivery and the message becomes more important, especially where the game is going, that you have 8, 9, 10-year-olds exposed to so much hitting and pitching, and when they get to you or us, you have to refine them. You can't retool them.
Right.
And their parents had spent a fortune getting them to that. They're not going to allow it. they're going to be very resistant. So I think the more strides that you make are in the personal side of it, and to be able to try to help them grow as people, and they become better baseball players. And they actually will go, oh, I get it now.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
I get what you're doing. Tyler Frank, who was a very good player for us, his father actually stopped me at a tournament this summer, and Tyler was second rounder signed, and he goes, I was a little nervous when he first got there, but there's a method. And I said, yeah, you know.
Isn't that what we're coaching for? Is
Sure.
that moment?
Yeah,
That
100%.
moment where it hits.
100%.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, let's go to this, Mac. Again, as loyal and as passionate, and now our new NCAA Division I Chair. Awesome. Congrats on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
So coming from you, and again, how entrenched and how passionate you are about what we're doing here, I think it's a great opportunity for the listeners that aren't here. And I was just telling Coach Martinez, man, I feel for those dudes, and ladies that aren't here with us. When you're talking to them directly, what's your pitch? Hey, you've got to figure out a way to get to Nashville. How do you say it?
You got to get here. It's simple. I know finances and time and family, and if it's important to you, you'll find a way. Just like, again, Coach Casey, thank you again. He said that the kid lived in a camper, wanted to play baseball. Were you there? He was talking about three players that made an impact, and he said one of the kids lived in his family had no money.
Wow.
He lived in a camper at a campground and would come to campus. And I think that if it's important to you, you'll find a way here. And once you're here once, you'll want to come back.
That's it.
Because it really is a camaraderie, and the people make it. The coaches make it. Like, I see people out of the blue come up, hi, Coach, I'm so-and-so, and, to a John Savage or a Kevin O'Sullivan.
Sure.
And those guys are great,
Yeah.
Hey, great, hey, that's great, keep up the good work. And, sometimes those coaches don't realize the impact they're making. That guy, that was a big ask for that guy to walk up and say
That's
something.
right.
And for you to be able to do that guy, it might change the trajectory of his life. I always think Ron Polk changed for me.
Yeah.
This organization in terms of, I knew I wanted to coach, but coming to this, I walked around for probably 6-8 hours, kind of bumping into walls, not knowing what to do.
Sure.
And then, in that business meeting on Thursday night, he was so gracious to me. He probably doesn't even remember. He was so gracious to me, and he renewed, or gave me fuel to kind of come to these things and get involved. And,
Sure.
because if you're up there speaking, you want to talk about what you're,
Yeah.
if you spent that much time putting a PowerPoint together or whatever it is, you want to do it. So if you walk up to people, they'll be more than gracious to help you out.
That is the beauty of this fraternity, which is awesome. Mac, we just love you being part of the ABCA, my
Well,
friend.
thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your time in Dallas, man. Get after it.
We will.
I know
We will.
you will.
Okay.
Thanks for jumping on.
You
with
got
us.
it. Thank you
Appreciate
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.